Hi, everybody, it's Catherine, and today I want to talk about healing and will it ever end? I know I myself have asked myself and the universe this question a lot. And I hear it from clients all the time because I tend to work with clients who've done massive amounts of personal work on themselves already. And they'll just be sitting in my office and be like, I can't believe, like, I thought I healed this. Why is it coming back? I thought I was healed. What's up with this? And so the message that's coming through to share with you today is all about that. So number one thing to keep in mind about this, and by the way, it's rainbow time in my office today. I love it. But the number one thing to keep in mind is that from our human perspectives here in 3D reality, we will never be able to perceive the healing process as healed. There's so much more going on in reality than we can possibly perceive from our perspective, that even if we think that something is a certain way, it really isn't. And there's so much more to the picture than we can know from our perspective. And so, a huge challenge and something that's really vital in the healing process is to surrender, to let go and let God, and know that we're doing our best in this reality, in these bodies on this planet at this time, and that we may seem to think that a certain pattern, a behavior, an emotional dynamic in us is healed, but it's really it's just part of a huge picture, the likes of which we'll never be able to see. And so we simply have to live life, not have to, but we simply live life through our own personal guidance system of our emotions, and see if we can loosen any attachment to knowing if we're healed or not, because we can't ever know. And really, it's meaningless from a more than three-dimensional perspective. It's meaningless. Am I healed or not? It really has no meaning beyond this human perspective, because really everything is perfect and everything is one, right? So number two is that if you're asking yourself the question, when is the healing going to end? There's a deeper question that you are not asking yourself, and you should, which is, why do you feel like you need to be other than you are to be okay? Because if you're asking, when will the healing stop, or when will I be healed once and for all, it means I don't feel okay as I am, and I need to be other than I am to be okay. And that's simply not true. We are conditioned to believe that that is true in our childhoods, in our culture, in our world today, especially in the West. I must say, we are conditioned to believe that we have to perform and be a certain way to be okay, especially because in the West we have this idea of original sin, that we come into this world as sinners and that we have to somehow make up for it. We have to atone for our sins and be saved to be okay. So this idea is completely ingrained into us that we have to do something to be okay, something extra. We have to be healed to be okay, is really, honestly, just another way of superimposing that original sin kind of mentality onto yourself, even though it's with different words in a very different kind of subculture than the religious one. So, number three that I want to talk about with relating to when healing will end, if it will ever end, is that even though we can never know, and it really is a non sequitur, am I healed or not, from a way zoomed out spiritual perspective, from your very human perspective of your own heart, there is a way that you can know your own completion, the completion of this healing process for yourself, and that is, you are healed if you are no longer attached to being healed. You are healed if you are no longer attached to being healed. In other words, you have remembered and rediscovered your own innate wholeness. If you can just be with yourself and be genuinely okay with being the way you are. So, for example, in my own personal life, I have very recently realized how much fear was at the root of my ambition. I genuinely enjoy, being active in my professional life, but there was at the very root of it this desperation and this fear that was happening, that I have to be a certain way. I have to have a certain number of followers. I have to do something. I have to speak at a certain number of regional or national events to be good enough, to be okay, to reach my potential in this lifetime. It's very toxic, the way that this is talked about in the spiritual community sometimes, like your potential. But that's a whole other video. So I realized that there was still a lot of fear in me. In other words, that I wasn't healed yet. And yet, I was so overjoyed to just listen to my own reaction to that in my own body, in my heart, and realize that I had so much compassion for myself that I had that fear in me, I wasn't beating myself up anymore for not being healed enough, especially as a healer, as a spiritual guide professionally. There is pressure we can put on ourselves to get it, to have it figured out, But I was just so overjoyed to feel that I was no longer beating myself up for being afraid. I mean, how ironic is that? But the reality is we're doing it to ourselves all the time, especially in the spiritual community. And so I realized, wow, I've come so far because I would just have ruthlessly and relentlessly beat myself up for not being enough. Even 6 months ago, if I had discovered that there was still fear in my body, there would have been all this internal dialogue about, you purport to do this professionally, and yet look how much fear is still in you, blah, blah, blah. I don't even want to talk about it. It's so hard. So that's an example from my own life of how I discovered that I am whole, that, in other words, that I can accept myself for my brokenness. So you know that your healing is complete, or that it has a kind of completeness when you can accept yourself fully, completely, and consciously for your own brokenness. And the consciously is important because this is an adult realization. Because as children, as young children, we can go about our lives being unconcerned. We are who we are, but we're unconscious about it. We haven't consciously chosen it like we do as adults. So if you can, as an adult, consciously accept yourself, then that's gold. That's pure gold. So anyway, that is my response to, does healing ever end? And now it is very bright in my office with the way the sun is. All right. See you later. Bye.